Last time I spoke on basically the destruction, the prophetic destruction of Babylon after Israel was taken captive. In the psalm that they sang, that it showed how they were looking forward to that prophecy coming true. And in the hope that they had in that prophecy, and seeing that carried out. Today, my message is titled "Hope Through Fire," because I think that it's a recurring theme. That we need to have that hope, and it's going to go through fire. We're going to have to stand that test if we're going to stand at all. And much like I know last time I started out with reading the psalm, and it was kind of it started out on a low note, but that's the way a lot of people live nowadays. They live in that constant doom and gloom. We're fed it every day. Doom and gloom is a way of life for some people. Always looking at the negative, always anxious for the future. They look around, and I heard this one guy say, it was near Christmas, when this guy was speaking, and he's like, people look around and they see all this, peace and joy and angel you've heard on high, and it's like, where is that? Because they want to see it, and they don't see it. Some people have, they've lost all hope. So, on that positive note, turn to Lamentations. Chapter 3. Starting in 19, remember, O Lord, my affliction and my wandering, the wormwood and the gall, bitterness. My soul continually remembers them and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, therefore I have hope. It is because of the Lord's loving kindness that we are not consumed, because his tender compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great and beyond measure is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion and my inheritance, says my soul. Therefore I will have hope in him and wait expectantly for him. The Lord is good to those who wait confidently for him, to those who seek him on the authority of God's word. It is good that one waits quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man that he should bear the yoke of godly discipline in his youth. Let him sit alone in hope and keep quiet, because God has laid it on him for his benefit. Let him put his mouth in the dust in recognition of his unworthiness. There may yet be hope. Let him give his cheek to the one who strikes him. Let him be filled with reproach, for the Lord will not reject forever. That was the amplified version of that, and seeing all the destruction of Jerusalem, and going through this book, and it comes to this bright spot, It's like there's smoke, there's fire, there's people screaming, there's people running, there's people being taken prisoner by Babylon, and there's this one bright spot here. And Jeremiah had seen all this destruction coming. He'd seen all that. He's been speaking about it. He warned Israel, for like 40 years, before this, that this is going to happen. This is going to take place. You're going to have to be grounded, because what you see all around you is going to come to an end, and this is going to be something that's going to test you to your limits. And going back into see what verse it was, 22 there, loving kindness. I looked up the Hebrew, and I'm going to try to pronounce it here. Chesed, which means mercy, faithfulness, an ever-present. It's an ever-present. It's a faithfulness, a loyalty, to what He's promised. Is because of the Lord's loving kindness that we are not consumed, because He has promised His people that He's not going to allow us to be consumed, like the 3 children that was thrown into the fire. They were in the fire, but they were not consumed by the fire. So even all this turmoil that is recorded in this book, about the destruction of Jerusalem, God is letting Jeremiah know that He is always going to be with His people. He will always keep His people, no matter what the destruction is. And people can stand around and they can say, well, why is this happening? What kind of a God does this? And this is all this destruction, all this chaos that's going on. But when you think about it, judgment has to come. There has to be a judgment. There has to be a judgment for sin. In 1 Corinthians, chapter 13. I've always liked this. Verse 4. Love endures with patience and serenity. Love is kind and thoughtful, and is not jealous or envious. Love does not brag and is not proud or arrogant. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not provoked, nor overly sensitive and easily angered. It does not take into account a wrong endured. It does not rejoice at injustice, but rejoices with the truth when right and truth prevail. Love bears all things regardless of what comes, believes all things, looking for the best in each one, hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times, endures all things without weakening. Love never fails, it never fades nor ends. But as for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for the gift of special knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. For our knowledge is fragmentary and incomplete. But when that which is complete and perfect comes, that which is incomplete and partial will pass away. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I did away with childish things. For now in this time of imperfection, we see a mirror dimly, a blurry reflection, a riddle, an enigma. But then when in the time of perfection comes, we'll see reality face to face. Now I know in part, just in fragments, but then I will know fully, just as I have been fully known by God. And now there remain faith, abiding trust in God and His promises, hope, confident expectation of eternal salvation, love, unselfish love for others growing out of God's love for me. These three, the choicest graces, but the greatest of these is love. Love never fails. Prophecies, tongues, they will cease. All this is going to pass away, but love never fails. And that goes right along with the verse that I had read before, God's loving kindness. It's never going to end. It never fades. As for the people who run out and say, what about this happening? I don't see love in this. I don't see a loving God behind this thing that's happening, behind all this destruction, behind all these people getting hurt. I don't see a loving God behind that. Well, For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, for our knowledge is fragmentary and incomplete. But when that which comes, or which is complete and perfect comes, that which is incomplete and partial will pass away. Basically, we don't know everything. We don't see all sides. We don't see what's going on. We can judge it from our stance, but our stance is right here in this particular moment. We have no clue what's going on anywhere else. So God is love and demonstrates this enduring, unfailing love best when we are at our most adverse to Him. You think about that. It's hardest to love somebody when they are being adverse to you, when they're angry, when they're screaming at you. It's hardest to love, and that's when He exemplifies His love for us the best, because He has to reach further to us. It's like, come on, man, snap out of it. Why are you spitting in my face? This is when He exemplifies this love. Everything is falling apart around us, and we are angry at God for letting these things happen. Judgment is not a wonderfully beautiful thing. It's just as Lamentations documents. It's a very doom and gloom. Things that result out of that, are hurtful. We become so out of touch with many of the realities of the world that we can't stomach the righteous results of sinful actions, and that's where the people come in. How can they do this? We can't stand it. If this is going to happen in Christianity, I don't want any part of it. And I've heard that so many times in the past few months. If this is what Christianity says about this situation over here, I don't want any part of it. And it's, you can't argue that it's not a terrible situation. It is, but what they can't see is what you would be talking basically to a wall, because they do not have that spiritual discernment to see what you see. So when we're not required to defend our beliefs with our lives, we become spiritually stagnant. I think that this is where we're at right now. Quickly going to becoming apathetic. I think many people are apathetic right now, but there's a lot of nominal Christians who are just stagnant. They're Christian. They'll own that title, but they won't do anything else with it. So then we become apathetic. We just really don't care. And then that progression, normally it will lead to just becoming morally debased. Let them do what they're going to do. They're not in my picture. I'm looking this way. Let them do whatever they're going to do. And that's a bad place to get in, because that's when the love for the neighbor goes out the window. And that's basically Jesus' commandment: love thy neighbor. So when we're out of touch, when we're that out of touch with everything going on around us, the people who need the light stop seeing the light. They stop seeing any example of what Christianity is, what Christianity should be, and that's when they start saying, well, I don't need that. If that's what Christianity is, I don't need it, and it's a very tragic thing when someone turns their back because they don't have a good example to see. They don't see Christ anywhere, so they turn their back. So you have to ask yourself this question, and have you ever lost hope? Have you ever been in a place where you're just like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't see a way out? And if you've ever been in that spot, many people are, especially this time of year, when people start singing and dancing around and all this. It's a very hard time for some people. In 1 Kings chapter 19, and this one is in the King James Version. I know I've been reading from the Amplified Version, but verse 14 of chapter 19. And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So, Elijah, he just came from demonstrating God's power, over Baal. He just came from this situation, where these, prophets of Baal they were distraught. They could not get a reaction from their God. So, he demonstrates that God is that there is only one God, and it is not Baal, and he does all this stuff and demonstrates the power that God has over everything. And then he comes to this point, he's like, I'm the only one left. Everyone's gone. Everybody's just turned their back, and it's kind of a way spiritually that I feel about a lot of people today. They've spiritually just turned their back. They don't want any part of it. They've got a new God in their life, and they don't want a part of it. And and then God responds in verse 18. He says, "Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him." So God comes back and he said, look, I know where you're looking from right here. It looks doom and gloom. It looks very bad. You look at the TV and it looks bad. There's nobody out there. And we look at that today. We see the TV. It's like, okay, all right, there's fires over here, earthquakes over here. There's this stuff going on. And there's no mention of God out there, because they're showing a perspective that they want to show you, and just as in this, he's seeing what he wants to see, and he's seeing doom and gloom, and God's like, look, you need to stand up, because you're one of the people, not the only one. You're the one of the people who still believe, in me, and who still lift me up. I've got 7,000 in Israel. And a few years ago, there was a movie that came out, and we watched it here for the youth group. We had it one night, and it was called "Do You Believe?" And this movie starts out. It takes like 7 different people, separate. They're all in the same city, and it starts out, and there may have been 2 of them that knew each other, but I mean everybody else was just separate, separate lives, and they really didn't know anything that was going on in the others' lives, and but as it goes through this movie, you see this person that's on the side of the road with a cross, and he confronts these people in this van, basically who were burglars. I mean, they were breaking into places and trying to steal money and everything. So, this guy, he confronts him, and he says, I forget exactly what he said, but he was basically met with, get out of our way, old man, basically, that kind of a attitude. But that man spoke to one of the people in that van, ended up saving him and his brother in the end, because it sowed that seed, and even though there was so much, towards the end of that movie, there was so much of a tragedy going on, it goes to show what you can see is not all that there is. And basically, you see this perspective. This person over here is going to interact with you at some point, and you're gonna change that person's life, or have an opportunity. And and I kind of think of it like in astrophysics, there's a theoretical way that they were talking about at least back in the early 2000s about, okay, if we have a meteor coming at Earth, okay, so they can tell by the, okay, well, the orbit of Earth is this, and the orbit of this thing is this, and in about 20 years, it's going to intersect. At the right time, at the right minute, that meteor is going to hit Earth or come very close. So, they come up with this theoretical way, okay, how can we affect this meteor or this asteroid? How can we affect this asteroid that technically it's not a meteor until it enters the Earth's atmosphere, but how can we affect this thing so that it's not going to hit Earth? So they thought, okay, we could send something up there, Hollywood style, just blow the thing up. Well, okay, now you got a shotgun shell headed at you. You got a bird shot, coming at you. Instead of one big thing, you got a bunch of things that's going to just hit every city on the planet. So they thought, okay, well, what we could do is we could launch something that orbits right along with that and pull it, use a gravitational force to pull this thing off its course. So just a chance encounter that just nudges it off its course. So then it will not hit Earth. And that was a theory that they used. Okay, well, you don't actually have to hit it, just fly something very dense next to it, and just pull it, just that slight pull. And over 20 years, that orbit changes just enough where it's not going to hit Earth. That was actually, something that they've tossed around, I guess, and at NASA, a way to knock these things off their course. But if you think about it, it's that's the way we are too. That's what we're called to do, is just chance encounter, meet that person. Hey, just like you said, the lady that was going to take her own life, and just a chance encounter, and that he was there and he took the opportunity, and for that, she's still alive today, and it speaks volumes, because that is exactly what we're supposed to do. So, honestly, if you look at everything, it's a bit overwhelming. It's if we were to see everything, if we could see everything going on, we would be overwhelmed. We wouldn't be able to do anything. That's like micromanagement. It's like, okay, I'm in control of this business. I've got several different branches all throughout the world, and I'm going to come into work 7 a.m., and I'm going to tell everybody what to do. We'll see how that works out, because you're going to come in and, okay, over here in Japan, they just went to bed, so I don't know what you're doing. So I mean, you can't micromanage. You can't see everything. If you were to do it, it would be completely overwhelming. You would not. Only God knows what's going on in these different little pieces of the puzzle. So he knows each person, each situation, each thing that's going on, each outcome intimately, and that's what you would have to know, to be able to affect these things, to be able to orchestrate these things. So he knows each outcome, each person, each situation intimately. He has those who are basically, like Jeremiah. He's still speaking today. This is coming, guys. We need, those that warn, those that who see this, who know this, and see it, and can identify the things that are happening today. There are people that he has his hands and his feet in the midst of all this, like, I'm sorry, Imran? Okay. But he has these people that are actively hands and feet, going to Puerto Rico, talking to people as you're doing the roofing, as you're doing the remodeling, just the chance encounters, his hands and his feet in the midst of all the chaos. And I put chaos in quotations, because that's what people see. That's what everyone out there sees. The world's in chaos. Okay, Paris is in chaos. This is all in chaos. Everything's in chaos, you know. But if you really think about it, God is he is a God of order. Chaos is something that the devil wants to implement. He wants everything in chaos. But God knows everything. So if God knows all these different things and how they're going to interact, how they're going to intersect, how the outcomes are going to come out, there is no chaos. Chaos is just I'm trying to think of the word. It's a lie, yes. It's like a mirage, you know, out in the desert. It's just a trick of the mind, a trick of the eyes, you know. So this morning we sang, you know, a song, "Living for Jesus," and I don't know if I've actually ever sang that song before, but I happened to look down and see who the author of that song was, and it's Thomas Chisholm. And he also wrote "Great is Thy Faithfulness," which I didn't know that until this morning as well. But you know, "Great is Thy Faithfulness," that comes from Lamentations 3. And you know, in going through that song, you know, it shows, you know, that every morning you are to depend on God, just as during the Exodus, you know, just as that, when they had to depend on that manna every morning. They could not gather it for 2 days. They had to go out each morning and gather that manna. So in the midst of the apparent chaos, we can have hope because God hasn't changed. He is the same God. He is the same promises that we have today have been forever. His tender compassions never fail. Because of his loving kindness, we are not consumed.